Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. I'm Mark Ellie. Glad you're with us today. Rick, of course, is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. You can always go to the website to find out more, safeguardinvestment.com. The team is here to really help you create your blueprint, if you will, your big picture retirement blueprint. So income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning. What about Social Security? It's in the income part. What about Medicare? That's in the healthcare part. So there's just a lot of moving pieces when you go from that accumulation phase of working to the distribution phase of retirement. It's different planning, and that's what the team at Safeguard is here to do, is help you plan and make sure you're on track, or you need to make a tweak or something like that. You don't even realize it. I think I'm okay. I hope I'm okay. That's a perfect time to call the team. 800-700-1980. Find out where you are on that road to retirement. Can I retire? Well, when can I retire? Do I have enough? 800-700-1980. So, Rick, this is going to be kind of an interesting show, I think, because we don't talk a lot about the different generations, right? The greatest generation, those were folks born in 1901 to 1927. The silent generation, 1928 to 1945. My parents were in that generation. I guess my grandparents were in the greatest generation. I am in the baby boomer generation, born 1946 to 1964. So I was born in 1959. Then, Rick, it's your generation, the Gen X. So that means the oldest, born in 1965, would be turning 58 this year. The youngest would be turning 43 because it's 1980. So 1965 to 1980. Baby boomers are right now retiring, and Gen X is on deck. Do you deal much with the Gen X generation?
Yeah, actually, we are definitely starting to. And, a lot of them, that are fortunate enough, depending upon what type of career that they had. Just actually, most recently, I had an officer that retired at 52, and he gets a pension. And then, of course, he also now is also working security at some other place. But we're getting people that are retiring a little bit earlier now. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of the keys probably to an early retirement. I've got a lot of friends that were school teachers. Or worked at I think it was a nuclear plant, actually, and they had a pension. So those folks are able to retire a little bit earlier because they do have guaranteed income coming from the pension, but they also have the guaranteed income from Social Security. Kind of gives them a leg up on somebody like me that just has 401ks, right? I don't have guaranteed other than Social Security. So when you think about it, there are 10,000 baby boomers retire every day. 10,000 turn 65 every single day. And by the year 2030, all baby boomers will be at least the age of 65. That's crazy. But Generation X is ones that right now are getting ready to move into that, because right now 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 each and every day. Think about that. That's pretty crazy. That's the baby boomers, right? Gen X is in a little different area, but you're on deck. It's time for you to start thinking about retirement. And does it kind of sneak up on us, Rick, do you think, to a degree? Or those ones that are 45, 48 in the Gen X, are they kind of excited about what's ahead?
No, I think it kind of sneaks up on many of the people, because let's just face it, we're all busy with work and kids, and now that, the Xers are actually even having grandkids, everybody's busy, and yeah, they may be contributing to retirement accounts and, kind of doing things, unfortunately, willy-nilly. But as things get closer, they start to feel the heat a little bit and start to realize, hey, wait a minute, you know what? This is coming up on me. I got to start getting serious.
When you think about it, I think a lot of Gen Xers will be going, well, what are you talking about retirement? That's my parents. That's not me yet. What would you say to those Gen Xers that, the first Gen Xers now are mid to 58, 55 to 58, really? What do you want to say to them to help them maybe make the most out of the next maybe 5 to 15 years?
Well, here's the thing. And I know, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but obviously the sooner you start your planning, the better off you're going to be. That way you're not caught with surprises. And here's another thing that I just want to briefly mention. And it happened in my own situation, is that as we're getting older and we're getting close to retirement, it's one thing to think about our own retirement and kind of, figure out income that we're going to need for that. But also, like you were saying earlier, our parents are getting older. And in some cases, we may need to assist them or help them as they're getting older. And that's a whole nother expense that sometimes we may have to help supplement. And that's a whole new part of the planning that has to come into play. So, it's very important now at this stage of the game. We know how fast time goes. They got to sit down with somebody now and lay out a structure, lay out a plan that's going to fit their situation specifically rather than just kind of doing things in a vacuum.
Here's one of the greatest opportunities for you, especially, I mean, baby boomers, this is certainly available for you as well. But Gen X, your time is coming, and maybe a little bit quicker than you expected. It might catch you by surprise. But Rick and the team at Safeguard have set up this text where you can text the word toolkit to 951 667 4969, and you're going to get the retirement toolkit. All right, what happens if we're in a recession? What about Social Security? What about taxes? There's a lot of different things that are included in that toolkit. So you get these retirement guides, and you also get a webinar. So when you think of Rick, there's also Eddie Soda, there's Reed Abedin. Those three are the founders, if you will, of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. And Reed actually put a webinar together, and they do this when they do their live events, and it's typically about an hour and a half, but Reed shortened it. It's a 30-minute webinar that kind of gives you an idea of what Safeguard Investment Advisory Group can do for you. So text the word toolkit, 951-667-4969. You get the retirement guides. You get the webinar, 951-667-4969. Just text the word toolkit to that number. It'd be a great way to get started, is actually what it would be. So when you think about Social Security, Rick, and that is something baby boomers, I'm not worried about Social Security, even though they say by 2033, 34, 35, I might get 78 cents on the dollar. But I'm not real worried about that for me. But my daughter's 22. I don't think Social Security is going to be there, or it'll be in a different form or fashion, or it'll be much later in her life than what mine would be eligible for. What about the Gen Xers? I mean, they're a little bit of ways from that Social Security, but I mean, the oldest are really only 4 years away from being able to start it. So what do you say to the Gen Xers about Social Security?
Obviously nobody has a crystal ball, but what I will say is this. If I'm going based upon my gut, I believe it's still going to be there. However, with that being said, and I'm seeing a lot of people do it nowadays when we're putting plans together for clients, we're like, hey, listen, let's try to plan assuming it's not going to be there. Let's plan for the worst case scenario. That way, if for some reason, it gets reduced or cut or completely eliminated, we plan for the worst case scenario. We know you're going to be okay. If it is there, well, then that's just icing on the cake. And I think that's the approach that we have to take, is just plan for the worst case scenario and assume it's not going to be there. But my gut, if you're just asking me, one-on-one, I think my gut tells me, at least for the Xers, it'll still be there.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking, what do elected officials really want? Get reelected.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're not going to mess with my Social Security. That's kind of what I think. They're going to figure it out. All right, what about the young Gen Xers? We said the youngest were born in 1980, which means they're turning 43 this year, the youngest of the Gen Xers. What advice would you give to them? Because they're still maybe 15, 20, 25 years away from retirement.
I would just say it would be the same thing. I would just say, hey, listen, you know what? You're 43 years old. You have an advantage. You still got, some good time on your side to make this stuff work. And the other thing too, like I was talking about earlier, when it comes to long-term care planning and things of that nature, now is the time to really take a look at some of those things to supplement your retirement. Because it's one thing, I've seen clients actually win the comfortable retirement. It's another thing to be able to maintain it for 20 or 30 years during retirement. And one of the biggest spend downs is healthcare and long-term care costs. And, until you actually see it happen within your own family or somebody close to you, it always, again, it's something on the back burner. So I would definitely tell them, hey, listen, sit down with somebody that specializes in retirement planning, somebody that works with specifically retirees. That way they can actually bring up things that retirees go through that maybe you never even thought about before. You don't necessarily have to implement all these strategies, but it'd be nice that you're at least made aware of, hey, what are the possibilities? What are some things I should at least be considering? So again, you want to work with somebody that specializes in that area.
And there's a lot of things that happen really once you become of a certain age, right? 59 and a half is when you can roll your 401k out, roll it into an IRA. Typically, most companies allow you to do that. You're still going to, maybe you're going to retire at 65. You're still going to take advantage of the company match, but you're taking a little bit more control over your money and you're doing something wisely with it to help really set up your retirement. But also IRA world, once you get over 50, you can put an extra $1,000 in per year. 401ks, 403bs, you can put an extra $7,500 all the way up to $30,000. Now, there's not a ton of people that can do that, but that's certainly, if you're in that position to be able to put that much money away, that could be great. Or maybe instead of putting it into the 401k, you'd put it into the Roth side of things. There's a lot of moving parts here. And the team at Safeguard Investment Advisor Group is here to answer your questions, your concerns. How can they help? That's really what they want to know. So we're talking to Gen Xers today, but certainly this goes for the baby boomer Gen. You're retiring right now. So there's a lot of moving parts here. Rick and the team are here to help if they can. The number is 800-700-1980, 800-700-1980. I think this is one of the more important phone calls you'll make. We're talking about the next 20, 30 years of your life. For those young Gen Xers, we might be talking about the next 40 plus years of your life. The key is getting a plan and then following that plan. Doesn't mean the plan's not going to change as things happen, right? But Rick and the team are here to help. 800-700-1980. We're talking about Gen Xers in retirement. We got more with Rick Rivera right here on the Big Picture Retirement Show coming up right after this.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. Rick, 20 years experience in the financial industry. He's a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisor Group. You can always go to the website to learn more, safeguardinvestment.com, safeguardinvestment.com. So you got questions like, hey, Rick, can I retire? Well, when can I retire? Do I have enough? Will my money last as long as I do? Will my loved ones be okay if something happens to me? And really, overall, most of us just want to know, if we retire, we're going to be okay. That's what we want to know. So really, it's about making the right decision at the right time. Things happen. We all get that. But Rick and the team are here to help. 800-700-1980 is the number. There's no cost. There's no obligation. There's no pressure. 800-700-1980. I'm Mark Ellie. Glad you're with us today. Rick is chatting about the next retirement generation, Generation X. So the baby boomer generation, born 1946 to 1964. I fall in that because I was born in 1959. Rick falls in the Gen X generation, born 1965 to 1980. So you think about that. So retirement for the older part of the Gen X is not far away, maybe 5 to 10 years out. For the younger, you got more time. So one of the interesting things is, I think a lot of people, the biggest concern, and we've talked about this before, Rick, is one of the biggest concerns is the fear of outliving our money. I would think for this generation, because they're probably going to live longer than the baby boomer generation, how concerned and how should they be saving, how much they need? You got an easy answer for me there, don't you?
Yeah, here's the thing, and this is something that I actually want to warn people of. You can research this stuff on the internet and Google things, and you'll get all kinds of general rules of thumb of how much you're going to need when you retire. It could be everything from $1 million, $2 million, 80% of your salary. All these numbers are going to be thrown at you. Again, they're general rules of thumb. You want something that is going to be specific to your situation. And I can't tell you, how many people I come across, and maybe they, saved $1 million and they're feeling happy because they Googled, hey, I should save $1 million. But when they come and sit down with me and tell me, hey, I need 10 grand a month, I'm like, listen, this ain't going to last you forever, Or sometimes I have just the opposite, where somebody, hey, they might have some really good pensions of, 8 grand a month, and the bills are 3,000, and they're crying because they only saved 300,000 in 401ks or retirement accounts. I'm saying, listen, you know what? You don't quite have to sweat. This money's going to continue to grow for you because you don't need it to live on. You're going to be fine. So really, it needs to be designed for your specific situation.
And I think that's a great point. As you sat down with people that had $2 million, it was not near enough. You sat down with people that had $250,000, it was plenty. Everybody's situation is unique, and that's how the team at Safeguard looks at it. There's no cookie-cutter plan, right? The big picture blueprint is all about whomever Rick and the team are sitting down with. Again, that number is 800-700-1980 if you'd like to chat with them about where you are on that road. The sandwich generation, baby boomer generation were probably one of the first really to have extended time in that sandwich generation. Gen X will have even more time typically. And the sandwich generation is okay, you've got aging parents and then you've got kids. So you're the one in the middle, and the Gen X is certainly going to be a part of that. I think baby boomer generation was really the first to have a lot of time with the grandparents still, for their kids. So how do you look at the sandwich generation? Do we have to plan for that because it can have can have an impact on your finances if you're trying to help both ends of that sandwich.
100%. And actually, I was in that situation. Prior to my mom passing away, she was in a situation where, all she had was Social Security. And, she needed help. She, couldn't live by herself. And, we're able to get her some home supportive services. But, there was still a shortfall. And I had to cover that shortfall. And I had a kid in college. And these are all expenses that, at least on her end, that I wasn't expecting at the time. And a lot of Xers are finding out that they're in that situation. They want to take care of their parents. They want to help as much as possible. But again, it's a scenario where are you going to do it to your own detriment? So without a plan, you can be hurt, when it comes to your own retirement. So yeah, it's really important to look at these different things because the expenses are going to keep rising. Cost of medical is going to keep going up, and things are not getting any cheaper. And unfortunately, this is, now some people are making sacrifices to their own 401ks or retirement plans because they're like, hey, I got to help my mom. I got to help my dad or, all these extra expenses. And now they're finding they're suffering in the end when, they could have planned a little bit better or had somebody help them that specialized in this area to really, make a difference.
Yeah, and the idea is when you know better, do better. Well, you don't really know because you never retired before. So you're not sure how to handle all of these moving things that happen in our lives. Well, Rick and the team, they do this every day. They started the company in 2008, but all three of them have been in the financial world longer than that. So they've seen a lot of scenarios. They can also help you with the common mistakes. And I think that's really one of the reasons that they started this ability to text the word toolkit to get the retirement guides and the webinar to kind of give you an idea of some of the challenges of retirement. And all you have to do is text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. There's no cost, no obligation for this either. They're just going to send you that information. You've got it. You got questions, you can always reach out to them, certainly. But the idea is to help you get some education into this retirement world. Text the word toolkit, get the retirement guides and the webinar. Text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. 951-667-4969. We've always been talking about taxes because the baby boomer generation is really the first generation to retire in the 401k IRA world and not in the pension world. There's still pensions out there, obviously, but most do not have a pension. So Gen X is going to be the next generation that you've dealt with. Most of them don't have pensions. You'll have teachers, government workers, firemen, police and all of that certainly deserve pensions, but most of us don't have it. How important are taxes at the end of the day for the Gen X group?
Huge. And here's one of the things that we do, or at least should be considered in somebody's situation, is not only where their tax bracket is now and what things can be done in order to minimize taxes now, because that's going to enhance, every aspect of their planning. But hey, what are some things that can be done proactively to maybe potentially minimize taxes when we retire as well? Because there are strategies that can be implemented now ahead of time where we can potentially not only reduce taxes now for you, but also put you in a situation where we can totally minimize taxes on Social Security, taxes on your pensions. So this way, going forward, you're enhancing all those dollars because, one of the things that people tell us is, hey, listen, the more money I save in taxes is more money in my pocket. So if we can find you 10 or 15% in savings and taxes, how easy to make that same 10 or 15% in the market. So again, it's about controlling the things that we can actually control, and that's what we try to do.
So could you give me an age and maybe a time limit? Is it 5 to 10 years out from retirement, or is it 3 years out from retirement that they really ought to think about sitting down with the team at Safeguard?
Sitting down with us, generally, we see that they're usually about 5 years out from retirement is usually the sweet spot. However, speaking with considering the younger individuals, some of these individuals, I know they can't, move their 401ks, but some of them have 401ks from previous employers. And some of those things may be able to be moved into traditional IRAs and allow them to get further investment diversification for their retirement. But also, I wouldn't do that automatically. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. And just depending upon when you actually, your goal is on retirement. But again, if you've got multiple 401ks from different employers and you're like, what should I do? Should I lump it all in with one employer? Or maybe should I convert some of this to a traditional IRA? This is one of the things that we can do is actually sit down with you and let you know, hey, what makes the most sense based on, hey, if you're planning on retiring before 55, okay, maybe keeping the 401k, here's some ways to leverage for tax purposes. Or if you plan on retiring after 55, okay, here's another strategy. And we can even run mock tax returns saying, hey, look, here's what your taxes look like now. By making a few adjustments, here's what they can look like going forward. And then also, if we implement this strategy or that strategy, here's what we can do for when you retire. We can estimate roughly what you might need at retirement. And we can even run a mock tax return then saying, hey, here's a rough idea of what we can expect tax-wise when you retire. Obviously, I know IRS codes change and everything, but hey, at least we have a game plan. And as time goes on, we can constantly modify and adjust as we get closer.
So for Gen Xers, retirement is getting closer than maybe you expected. So it's something to think about. And baby boomers, you're retiring right now, and it's certainly on your radar. But Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group are here to help if they can, right? We're here to help. 800-700-1980 is the number. There's no cost for this. 800-700-1980. Again, I think it's one of the more important phone calls you'll make. 800-700-1980. Rick, enjoyed it. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a great week. We'll do it again next week.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC.